United States through the aegis of that corpse, Ban Ki-moon, that they would put Tony Blair as the head of peace negotiations. It's the joke about Finkelstein in charge of a blood bank. Now, some of you might be doing some quick arithmetic, and you say, well, okay, that's 3,000 settlers, but that still leaves 200,000 settlers. What about them? And even there, it's not really an insurmountable problem. Most Israelis, overwhelmingly, they didn't settle in the West Bank because of ideological reasons, because this land is mine, God gave this land to me. No, it wasn't that boom that inspired them. For those of you who know the song, how many of you know it? I'm really dating myself, yes. I'm the older one, yes, you're dating yourself. Most of them moved there because the mortgages were cheap, the education subsidies, medical subsidies. The government was giving economic incentives to people to move to the West Bank, and people took advantage of those subsidies and moved. But according to many polls, a large number of them say, give us compensation, meaning the Israeli government, give us compensation and we'll just go back to Israel. It was a financial deal, and if you financially compensate them, they'll go back to Israel. There's really only a hardcore of maybe 5, maybe 10. I think it's closer to 5, but I can't prove it. There's only like a hardcore of about 5,000 settlers who say, we're not leaving, this is our land, blah, 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 blah. Most of them are from Brooklyn, New York, my neighbors. And from the former Soviet Union, crazies meet. And even it's vastly exaggerated, the obstacle that these settlers pose. These fanatical settlers, the obstacle that they pose. I think it's vastly exaggerated. You take an example, how many people, anyone here from the very nice Palestinian city of Hebron? Raise your hand. Anyone been to Hebron? Okay, so raise your hand up high. So you'll be able to confirm my own. I spent a lot of time in Hebron. I lived there, technically Al Khalil. And Hebron, there's 160,000 Muslims. Well, it's all entirely Muslim. Hebron is a Muslim city. Very conservative, very traditional. The Hebronites have a reputation for being traditional, conservative. It's my cup of tea. So what you can call a conservative communist or a communist conservative. I like tradition. I also like sharing. And then there's this little place in Hebron called H2. And H2 has these 400 absolutely insane bananas, Meshuggah Jews. They're crazy Jews. 400 of them. If you look at the women have this glazed look like the Stepford Wives. For those of you who know, it's all lunatic people. And they're really a nasty, nasty, nasty bunch of people. Is that correct? Is that a correct description? Really? I hate to say it because I love little kids, like from age 3 on up. No, it is a very ugly picture. No, it really is. So what are you going to do with these crazed Jews from Brooklyn? Actually, I'm glad they left the neighborhood, but that's a separate issue. I'm sorry they went there. They should have got settled in the territory between the airport and this place here. That was a place for them. If you really want to solve the Israel-Palestine conflict, it's very easy. Just find the 3rd Jewish temple in that area. All come here. In any event, They asked the former head of the Israeli internal secret police, the Shin Bet. They asked him, a guy named Abraham Shalom. They asked him, what should we do with these settlers? They don't look like they're going to obey the law. They're so fanatical. And he said, I don't believe that they are all that brave. I don't think they're all that brave, he said. So you take these 400 settlers in Hebron, and they're surrounded by 160,000 crazy Muslims. Very stubborn, these Muslims. The joke about Hebron is, did you hear about the Hebronite who fell off a 6-story building and he lived? Really? How? He landed on his head. They're very thick-skulled, the Hebronites. So he said, all you have to do is tell these settlers, hey guys, you want to stay? Stay. But the army is leaving. You want to stay among the 160,000 Hebronites? Be our guest. And Abraham Shalom said, when we leave them out there alone, they'll come back, and how fast they'll come. And I think that's realistic. There is a way to solve the conflict, to put this eternal soap opera, to finally take this soap opera, this tragic soap opera, off the air, to pull the plug on As the World Turns. There is a way to do it. And, I've been involved, as I said at the very beginning, I've been involved for 30 years. And it's a very sobering thought. The whole of your whole adult life has passed. Your whole adult life has passed. And you're focused on this tiny pinprick on the world's map. The range of human knowledge is so broad and so deep. And I spent the whole of that time just reading these human rights reports, these books, these footnotes and footnotes and footnotes. Reading Alan Dershowitz's footnotes. Most of which, of course, weren't his. And sometimes I despaired. I wondered whether I had made a prudent choice in life. I sometimes wondered, why couldn't I have picked a winning cause, like the Mets, or this? But now I think it can be so. It can be concluded. All we have to do is two things. We have to be principled, which is to say, it's not an abstract idea, it's a concrete one. Being principled means that nobody has the right to tell Palestinians that they have to give up any of their rights under international law. Those are their rights. The whole of the West Bank, whole of Gaza, East Jerusalem, that's occupied Palestinian territory. And the Palestinians have the right of return or in compensation. That's the law. So we want to be principled. As the Mahatma said, and I like the line, Gandhi said, I'm all for compromise, but not when it comes to principle. I'm all for compromise, but not when it comes to principle. And I think that's right. Principle here means the law. But secondly, we also have to be reasonable. We have to find a formula where Israelis don't feel like their back is against the wall and their only option is to strike out at the world. Be reasonable. Now some of you ask or wonder, what does principled and reasonable mean? I say as a practical matter, that's principled. The Palestinians want 100% of their land. That's principled. But it's also reasonable. We'll let you keep 63% of the settlers, and we'll have a land swap for 1.9%. That, to me, is reasonable. If you're principled and you're reasonable, the conflict can finally find its resolution. Professor Edward Said, the Palestinian-American writer, at the end of his life, he liked to quote the Caribbean poet M.A. Cesar. There's room for everyone at the rendezvous of victory. There's room for everyone at the rendezvous of victory. I personally like that line because it does not talk about winners and losers. It doesn't talk about victors and vanquished. It says there's room for everyone. Christian, Muslim, Jew. There's room for everyone. Just be fair. Be reasonable. If you're fair, you're reasonable, there's room for everyone at that rendezvous of victory. Now, I don't know how I'm going to get there. I don't think I'm going to jog there because my legs are giving up on me. I'm not going to swim there because Tom knows how I swim. No, it ain't going to happen. Maybe I'll walk there. Maybe I'll need a crutch. Maybe I'll need a wheelchair. And maybe it'll be on a stretcher with life supports. I don't know, but I'm determined to get to that rendezvous of victory. And speaking selfishly, I think I deserve to get there. But I can't get there alone. Because it's still an upward battle. It's one thing for public opinion to be ready to listen. But as Gandhi pointed out, there's still a huge gap between knowing something is wrong and doing something about it. And that's where we all come in. Because if I want to get to that rendezvous of victory, it has to be if all of you are there with me. It's either all of us or it ain't gonna happen. So, I'm hopeful, I'm optimistic that I will get to that rendezvous of victory. And not only I hope, but I expect that I'll see all of you there with me.